Hey everybody, this is Grateful Futures here. Today I'm doing one of our typical market replays of today's session on SPY, the S&P 500. Today is September 29th, and I just want to show you what I was seeing throughout the day using volume profile and market structure and some other volume methods to catch the best trades possible. And honestly, the early part of the day kind of looked bad, so I want to show you guys this. We'll do a trading view replay. I am currently on a 1 minute chart here with a long-term volume profile on the left-hand side. If you guys don't know what that is, go ahead and go to my basics of volume profile training video, and you guys can catch up on that. This one, I will just kind of assume that you guys know the basics of that. Starting off in pre-market right now, this is 9:26 in the morning at this point. Just wanted to show you my pre-market plan. So on that long-term volume profile, you can tell that there are a couple different areas that we should pay attention to. The top, this is up near all-time highs. You could say this is a volume zone right here. This one that I'm just kind of marking off, this peak up here up at the top. There's also this lower volume zone right here below it, which is the one we're in currently right now. And then there's also below that, let me scroll down a little bit. There's this volume zone right here, which is that blue. It's shaded in blue, all that price range there. And then below that, there is kind of this small peak, but it's really kind of part of this larger peak as well. Just gonna mark this off all as one, but we also want to go through and mark all of our low volume nodes, right? Because those are all of our traditional support and resistances. I've already done that for you guys. All of these orange lines going throughout here, those are all low volume nodes. So you can see that at these points, the volume dips in, and then we have areas of high volume, low volume. I mark off all my low volume nodes with orange boxes. If it's colors, just like this is red, this one's yellow, this one's blue, that's just a different volume space that's separated by these low volume nodes. And then we also have a couple low volume nodes that are in between the actual large peaks. I put those out for you there. Just wanted to let you know what those were. Now we have to assume that, well, where are we going to potentially take a trade? We're currently in this volume space right here. So there's a couple things that can happen, right? We could come up here and reject off of this low volume node. We could support off this volume node. We could range in here, kind of like we've been doing throughout pre-market. You can already see that we're getting some resistance there. There's some support there. That's a possibility. And then when we leave this volume zone, what could potentially happen? Price could break through the top, retest this low volume node. Now is going to act as support. It could test all-time highs, or if it's going to go down, this is the current low volume node that's the closest to the current price action. We could break down, retest that low volume node, and then, go through this lower volume area down here. So those are the three different possibilities, the things I'm looking for trades on the day playing, well, off of the either within this volume zone or preferably a break and retest of one of these low volume nodes that's going to take us to our next price range. So that's the things that could happen, the support areas that we were watching today. One quick little note too, I'm going to flash over to the 45-minute chart. This is a wave trend, so it's kind of like MACD and RSI in a way that it gives you oversold and overbought levels. Starting at pre-market, this was all the way out of the overbought zone, so I knew that, there's only so much farther that it can go without price needing to pull back. And you can see these QQE bars are kind of stepping down as well, meaning, we're starting to cool off in terms of our overbought levels. So to go up, I would need to, have some serious confirmations to take a trade above in this, going towards all-time high. But knowing that the price is already pretty overbought, I'm going to edge towards either consolidating here or having a breakdown. So those are my two, preferred outcomes for just based on how the wave trend is looking. Of course, it's not guaranteed. It could keep going up and up and up forever and go further into overbought territory. It's just it's what makes sense based on the recent price action and how much it's gone up lately. So let's go ahead and go through this replay here, and I'll show you guys what I was seeing, what I used to take some trades. So already kind of looking down, but what I do is I never like to trade immediately as soon as the bell opens. I know some people do that. I'm not one of those people. I always wait, at least 5 minutes, 15 minutes to see something develop, and I'll show you why. So immediately price breaks down. It looks like pretty bearish, right? It looks like we're getting a break out of our volume zone here. Yeah, that's right there. Um, but again, to take a trade, we really need lots of different confirmations, and I don't ever like to immediately hop in on the open, just mainly because there's a lot of overnight orders, there's a lot of volatility. It could break down through this zone, and it's not a true break. It could pull back up just because there's so many orders going into the market. So I'm gonna zoom through the first 5 minutes there, and you can see even there it hits that zone and pulls up. Now we're at about 9:45, and the price is pulling back up to this blue line is volume weighted average price, VWAP. And this is basically, I'm thinking at this point, price could probably move back up into our pre-market consolidation zone. Also, if you're not familiar with my indicators, this panel right here is volume exponential moving averages. That's a custom indicator that I've made. You guys have access to this in the Discord. This down here in the bottom panel, that's cumulative volume delta. So do some research about that on your own. That's a measure of how many people are hitting market buy versus market sell, and it also has some good information. We use all of these together, never make a trade just based on one indicator. So at this point, prices dip down into our blue price range and in the price range of this volume peak long term. And you can see that buyers are starting to come in down there. Buyers are starting to come in. Sellers are falling off a little bit, and price pops back up into our consolidation range. And by this point, I'm thinking it's possible that either we're going to go break down and go further down, or we're going to consolidate up here. So what do? We're going to go ahead and draw a fixed ranged volume profile on our current action. And we see that this is kind of like a regular curve, a D-shaped volume profile that's typical of ranging price action. Again, remember, we're not going to do anything until we see significant volume indicators showing that we're going to break down, retest one of these lines, and move throughout these levels to target lower. If that does happen, when we see an entry, I'll go over the entry and exit requirements, but also, if you haven't seen my previous video, the lecture about point of control retests and low volume node retests, highly recommend looking at that because we will use some of that information on this video just to show you guys exactly, you'll understand the concepts behind why these are good entries in that video. So go ahead and watch that if you haven't already. I'm going to continue with the replay now. So price is breaking down a little bit here. Always keep in mind of the market structure. So the market structure here, let's get rid of these drawings we did earlier. So the market structure came up in pre-market. It tapped off of our low volume node. It came up and tapped off of our low volume node again, but you can tell that this is actually, it's going down in terms of the higher highs. It's not a higher high, it's now a lower high here. Price dipped down, and considering this our next high, this is also a lower high as well. So comparatively, so we are stepping down. So we have lower highs and also starting to build lower lows now. That doesn't mean we immediately take a trade, remember, but just keep in mind that we're oversold on a longer or overbought on a longer time frame. We're coming down. We're starting to make some bearish market structure again, but we will only take a trade off of a low volume node or a point of control retest if there's significant other factors and confluences coming into the market. And in session, we're actually starting to contradict that, right? We're starting to make a higher low here now. So this is, longer time frame, shorter time frame are fighting each other a little bit. Wouldn't take a trade here long just because, again, our pre-market plan, we were really needing some serious confluences in order to go long. So let's just kind of sit on our hands and wait, see if we can see something. Price pops up pretty heavily, pops back up into our consolidation zone. The point of control for the action in our in session range is right here. Let's go ahead and draw a dotted line on that to see if we can find any retests off of that. That could be good trades. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that for you guys there. Now price popped out of there. It's now coming back down to settle on our point of control and also VWAP as well. So this is potentially an entry, but we need other confirmations as well, right? We want to see the EMA drifting up. We want to see Delta drifting up to show us that buyers are truly coming in to buy this up further. And we do see price bouncing off of it. However, volume in terms of buy and sell volume is kind of a little choppy here. Uh, Buyers aren't really hopping into this right now. Same thing with Delta. Delta's actually flat or a little bit downward there. So I'm not going to enter this. You can even see at the end of this candle, price pushes back down below VWAP as well. So let's keep waiting. Price does break down below our low volume node here. So now price has tipped into this lower volume area. That's perfect. That we like to see that. Now if we can maybe get a retest off of this and go down with all of our other confluences, that might be a good entry to take as long as we're underneath that low volume node within this volume peak area here. So let's go ahead. We get support off of this low volume node. It does test the point of control. However, it pops right through it. So, and you can see that buyers are starting to come back. Buyers are coming back here. Sellers are falling off. Still waiting on our hands. We're in really tight range. It's kind of just chopping around. A lot of traders try to trade the chop and they end up kind of wrecking their accounts like that. So don't do that. Don't trade the chop. Sit on your hands and wait until everything is coming together for a good trade. It's my opinion that if you're trading SPY, I think some of the more often you find the better trades a little bit later in the morning or in the early afternoon. So don't try to trade this chop. Wait a minute, wait till you see something perfect. Let's pull our fixed range volume profile out a little bit so we can see it's still that D-shaped volume profile, meaning we're ranging there. It does come back to try to get to our point of control shifted a little bit to right there. It does try to come back and test VWAP, and we actually do get a little bit of a pop here, but there's something I want you to notice. So we get a little bit of a pop, right? It's consolidating on VWAP. We have a little bit of a pop here, but a couple things just don't sit right with me, right? There's decreasing volume. They're still kind of chopping. This green EMA, which is buy volume, the exponential moving average of buy volume, is kind of moving down along with the sell volume as well. Same thing here. If we draw a line from here to here, for sure the price is moving up, right? But our cumulative volume delta is actually moving down. So what does this tell me? It's highly possible that people are selling into this pop. We don't take a trade based on that. We don't just hop in short if we see delta moving down while the price is moving up, but it's something to start considering. And you can see that actually this was a fake out. So it comes back up to the top of our range of the volume profile, comes back down, Let's go ahead and extend our volume profile as we do while we have an active day of trading. Let's extend it to that high point right there. Point of control is about the same right there. And now something special is happening, right? See how before this was kind of just chopping here and actually moving down? This is the first time that we can see them actually pick a definitive direction, right? We have sell volume is moving up and buy volume is moving down. So now at this point, it's kind of confirmed that sellers are starting to take over at this point. Volume delta, the same thing. So we have now price actions moving down and volume delta is moving down. So that confirms to me that this pop was getting sold into. Now, again, still not just going to enter because, of course, it could just pull back up and keep chopping here. But now we can start to think if the price comes down because it's getting sold and buyers try to pick it back up, if they fail at the point of control, that would also be a fail under VWAP, a fail at the low volume node coming into this price level of this volume range. That would be an ideal entry because prices is rejecting off of that point of control. What was recently the most contested price point would now be a resistance. So that's what I was looking for initially. Price hits that, kind of comes up a little bit, and you can see buyers are trying to pull back up, sellers are coming down a little bit, but ultimately sellers come back into the market, push that cumulative volume delta down. Um, Sellers really ramp up here. You could take this trade right here at the fail underneath there. This could be our first short trade of the day, putting our stop above that recent high, and our target should be somewhere down here. You can, choose to take maybe a little profit at these low volume nodes if you want, but my ultimate target was somewhere near this high volume zone, this point of control. I always put my stop a little bit above it and my profit target a little bit above it just in case we reverse a little higher than that. And then I'll trail my stop as we go down. But this is more or less the first trade that we took today based on that, buyers pushing up into this consolidation zone from the morning. We can see we don't really like to take it up because of the long-term wave trend, as well as there's some delta divergences. Then all of a sudden, when we see sellers come into the market, price pushes down, tries to get up, but it makes a lower high under VWAP and pushes down into our next volume zone right at this low volume node. So we can confirm that, pretty much buyers are done in this zone. You can also see that we were making higher lows for a while and higher highs for a while. And now with this high right here, we've made our first lower high. We've made a lower high with all these delta confluences, with the volume EMAs failing under VWAP, failing right under this point of control from this consolidation. That is a high probability trade. Definitely should take that when you see it cross into that next volume area. And let's just kind of see how this played out. So you can see price tries to pop up to this low volume node. It's now catching more sells at that low volume node. If you want, you can move your stop above that high. That's what I did. And then as it just goes down, you can see buyers trying to support it at this low volume node. Sellers come back in heavily to push it through that low volume node. It's supported at the next low volume node, and you can just run this down until you see buyers either hit your trailing stop or you hit your profit target. So at this low volume node right here, I'm going to increase increase the brightness of it so you can see this one. Buyers do try to come back into the market. You can actually see from about right here up there, buying is increasing. It's getting more accelerative, but so is selling. Sellers fall off a little bit. Cumulative volume delta comes up. This is our first miniature pullback. It pulls back to that 9 EMA in yellow, and that's when sellers come. They didn't come in as much, they didn't push it down further, but buyers now supporting on top of this low volume node. I'm going to decrease this one and increase the other one so you can see. So buyers have now supported this one. That's okay. As long as it doesn't, hit your trailing stop. If you have like a stop at your 20, that's fine. If you're taking profits along the way, that's totally fine. This is already a really, really good trade. Let's go ahead and see if we can see anything else to stay in the trade with whatever position we have left, or if we should go ahead and maybe, get out. But already from where the wave trend is, we could see some pretty good bearish price action if it does follow through. So on this downtrend, we have that point of control up here about where the original point of control was. We also now see that we have this low volume node. So this low volume space that's kind of falling on the low volume node from the long-term profile. I'm going to go ahead and mark that off in light white. So I'm okay with this trade as long as I've taken some profit on the way down. I'm okay with it as long as it doesn't break from this new volume space that it's created into this upper volume space. So that would be, the start of a reversal. If it broke above that and supported it, then it would go for the point of control. But if we get some kind of action like this, then I am totally good to stay in that trade to try to hit that larger price target that we have. There's always going to be pullbacks. You just want that new volume zone to stick before sellers come back in and try to push it down further. So let's see if that's what happens. I would then go move my stop to either break even or right above that low volume node of the downtrend. So you can see it hits that and sellers start to come back in, starts kind of consolidating down there. Now you see instead of the sellers falling off, they're starting to increase. And since about right here, since we even tested that low volume node, buyers have also started to fall off as well. So if that continues up, this continues down, we should see another push down through these low volume nodes long term. And we do. We get a push down through those. Let's just make this longer. And now it should feel some resistance off of these long-term low volume nodes we've marked off. And it does. It falls through that next one, comes back up. And I believe I was out by that time on that push down because I was like around where my profit target was, but it's popped up from around there, hit back on this low volume node, and now sellers are coming in a little bit more. And I do believe we got a little bit of support off this one, but it's just consolidating now, still making lower lows, lower highs, and that one would be a closed trade if it pushes down right there. So that was the first trade of the day. It was a great trade, 1-to-3 risk reward ratio, which is very healthy if you guys are using risk to reward. And then you can confirm that this is still all good. Besides those volume confluences that we were looking at, it's consistently making lower highs, lower lows. So our market structure is confirmed. Turning bearish now. It was bearish in the pre-market, but with this lower high on a macro scale and this lower high confirming on a micro scale, then we can say that it's still pretty solidly bearish now. I was completely out of the trade at this point, just kind of looking for what's going to happen. I did see this huge buys come in right here, so I was a little like, I don't know if I want to go back in. I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to protect the capital that I've made so far. see if I can see anything else that's pretty significant. And as this goes and develops, you want to keep, pulling the fixed range volume profile and encompassing that the rest of that downtrend. You can also do partial fixed range volume profiles. And you can see that it even caught some resistance off that partial point of control. It's retesting this point of control right here, which is also a low volume node. But let's go ahead and pull this to encompass all of the downtrends so far. And on this chunk of the downtrend, if it pulls back, this is the levels that we want to watch, right? So we want to watch that point of control for a possible fail. We still have that low volume node space that we marked off back here that was used as resistance to stay in the trade at this candle. Those are the levels that I'm kind of watching to look for continuations or see what happens. But I'm completely out of my trade because we went all the way down there. We hit our profit target near that point of control long term. And we're just kind of waiting to see what happens. We also see this delta is coming up, the buy volume's coming up. So we're going to kind of hold off and see what happens. Right, so we do get a little bit of rejection off that point of control and low volume node, and it does continue our bearish market structure, making lower highs. I do believe there was a little bit of a pullback and then consolidation a little bit. Let's go ahead and pull that out. And then we see a lower high come over here. And when you see this, this is kind of a sell side imbalance, right? That's a little bit of sellers are starting to win again. We do see buyers are coming back a little bit with the volume EMA, but ultimately they do push it under this long-term low volume node, go down to test this next low volume node here, and that's kind of a double bottom, so to speak, right there. So underneath that, there's little resistance if it can get through this point of control to make it to our the next largest low volume node, which is this one right here. I've actually marked this major low volume node. So if this breaks down, then probably going to test down here. I was not in any kind of trade right there, just kind of waiting. I had already made my profits, so didn't want to get caught on the wrong side of the trade. And you can see when it breaks down there, it does pretty quickly after retesting that low volume node, make it down to our major low volume node. Now at this point, I was looking for the possibility of a bullish reversal. That bullish reversal mainly because we're at a major low volume node, right? Price has gone and traversed from this low volume node, which is the start of this peak, all the way down to this major low volume node. So price has already made it all the way through this entire volume peaks price range. That's enough of relaxation for me to consider maybe that, this might hold as a support. We might get some kind of pop. So when you have price come into one of these major low volume nodes, just like this one, you want to look for signs of a bullish reversal. And the first sign that tells me that it's going to be a bullish reversal immediately is that hammer candle right there. That's the first sign of, okay, buyers probably are going to come back in at least a little bit. Maybe they get beaten or whatever, but I know buyers probably are going to come back in a little bit just based on that hammer candle. On our volume EMA, we can see that a huge spike in buying volume coming in right at that low volume node level. And then also our cumulative volume delta is popping a little bit there as well. So I'm not immediately entering a bullish trade, right? We want to make sure that we're seeing from our bearish market structure. Let's go ahead and just make a bunch of these for you guys to use. So going from white, this is all of our bearish market structure, our lower highs, lower lows. And then this is the final lower low right there. So right? This is continuously bearish market structure. It's actually perfect. There's not one instance where it's really like significantly higher in terms of lows or highs than the previous one. We're continuously trending down. We've come into that critical low volume area, made that bullish reversal candle, and we start to see confluences of buyers coming back into the market. And what we're looking for here is we want price to make a higher low, start to make that bullish market structure again, higher low, and then we want those volume indicators to confirm that. Getting above that point of control would be a great start for a bullish reversal, supporting on that point of control, and then moving up through these volume levels. So let's see if we can see that happen in real time, and we'll mark them off. So right there, that is our first higher low. I'm going to mark that off in yellow. So that's great. That's our first indication that this is, might be legitimate reversal here, legitimate bottom reversal. Um, Buyers come in in cumulative volume delta. They're holding now instead of just falling off, starting to crank back up again. Same thing with our volume EMAs. Sellers, you can see they're actually continuously decreasing. Buyers pop up and they're going to start ramping up. There's also a huge volume bar at this hammer candle as well. You could go in here, you could wait for another lower high. I think it's probably smart with such bearish action to wait for another or higher low, excuse me. So let's go ahead and see. We get a little bit of resistance off of that point of control. And right here, there's our next higher low and higher high. So let's go ahead and mark that off right there, right there. So we have a huge pop in buyers. The important part is this is at a critical support level, our major low volume node. It's like different, a little bit different than these, right? So you might see some buyers come back into the market like right here, like this, but it's so important that you're at one of those major supports, volume levels to give you the highest chance of other buyers coming back in right then. Because you can see once you make it to these resistance levels, sellers come back into the market. You really want buyers to overwhelm the sellers after there's a lot of shorts on there, right? If they can actually start building some momentum, then you might see some shorts covering and we'll actually see some pops up through those upper levels. So I actually did take a small position at this point right here. So when I saw this pop right there with two higher lows, higher highs from that critical level, I took this trade right here. My stop loss was below this, the last lower, the higher low, the first higher low, excuse me, and my target. This is super important. So let's go ahead and understand what should our target be for a bullish reversal. And I'll show you one more thing about what indicated to me that this was going to be a bullish reversal. So the other thing that indicated to me that this was actually a legitimate bullish reversal was, let's go ahead and draw an entire fixed range volume profile up to this point for this entire downtrend. Sorry, for this downtrend. So since about right here, let's actually see what this looks like up here. Let's do the whole day, why not? All right, so from the top here, you can see that's the biggest volume peak, right? The most volume during this entire streak of the day was placed up at the top of the day of the session. So as we move down, we have a lower volume. As we move down from that, we have lower volume. As we move down from that, lower volume. So that is a huge indicator that it's a high potential for bullish reversal or a reversal from whatever trend is as that liquidity is dropping, eventually there's not enough sellers to push the price down further, and especially not at a major support like this low volume node. So because that liquidity was falling, um, and we were at that major support, that was a big indicator to me that this had a high probability of reversal. And then where can we be looking to actually target for this bullish reversal? So I take a fixed range volume profile of just that pivot anchored downtrend. If this was to be a legitimate reversal, this would be the highest point of that pivot, and then this would be the lowest point. So this is the fixed range volume profile of that downtrend, the previous downtrend we're reversing out of. The point of control is where I like to go ahead and take, um, I like to target that point of control because that is where the most liquidity was previously, right? If the problem is we're running out of liquidity, I want to target where I know previously there was liquidity. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a yellow line for my target, and I'll make that dashed so I know it's a point of control. It's a bookkeeping thing that I do. And I'm going to go ahead and pull my target up to just below that, right? So that is the trade that I'd like to take on this bullish reversal. Let's see if we can see some confluences to stay in the trade, right? We want to see it definitely get above that point of control. As soon as it does, ramps up real quickly, right? So the delta is positive, the price action is positive. You can see buyers are starting to ramp up. Sellers have been falling off this entire time. So that's another indicator that, sellers have been kind of weakening, whereas buyers have been increasing. So that was another great thing there. Because we're officially in a new trend, I always take another volume profile of that specific trend. Point of controls down here. If it falls down there, as long as it doesn't break through that, then that's fine. I'm okay with that since my entry was down here. That would be like about a break-even entry. And what can we see? Okay, building volume up above this peak down here from the consolidation. That's great. Let's also, just for bookkeeping, we have a little bit of a low volume node. Let's draw that low volume node there because that's also going to be a little bit of support. And we can see that its price is supporting, right? More buyers are coming in. More buyers are coming in with cumulative volume delta at this long-term low volume node, which is also my uptrend low volume node. So I know that's going to be a pretty stiff support. As long as it stays above that, I'm pretty good with that. And you can see that it's actually what we call bull flagging, right? So it's putting more and more volume above this above the low volume node, above the volume that was posted from this price action down here. So volume pushed up, it's starting to put more volume up here. It's well liquid in terms of buying, supporting this price zone up here. That's a great reason to stay in a trade. And price is going to pop up again, gets a little bit of resistance at this low volume node long term, which is to be expected. And then let's go ahead and pull our fixed range volume profile out a little bit. Now we can see that our point of control has shifted up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and draw a white dotted line, knowing that that's the uptrend point of control, which always can serve as a place for price to retest. And you can see price comes right down to that point of control. And look what happens at that point of control. Buyers start to come in. You can see how huge this buy candle is. Cumulative volume delta is ripping. That is a great indication to stay in the trade. So I was holding this, saw that, price pops up, gets over that low volume node and settles on it, uses it now as support. And that's the next trade right there. Now, you may not be super convinced about what I've shown you so far. I don't know how, but you can literally tell that that was the exact price range at that low volume node where we had our bullish reversal. Just, don't just enter at a a low volume node because it could break. Anything can happen in the market. But when you have multiple factors, market structure changing, you have your volume EMAs starting to give confluence, you have cumulative volume delta starting to give confluence, then you can be pretty, if you wait for a moment like this, you can be pretty sure that probably you're going to have a bullish reversal in this kind of situation. Price comes right up to my target. Now let me show you what happens when price hits that point of control. Remember what I was saying, that the problem with this downtrend was that we were lacking liquidity? Well, that's where the liquidity previously was. So let's see what happens when it does get into this area. So start to get some pullback, right? You can see sellers starting to come back into the market, um, pushing down cumulative volume delta, sell volume is pushing up, and we get a serious pullback. Price comes back up to test that point of control again, and we get a huge pullback from that point of control. So you could take a short trade here if you want, right? Because overall, the entire session is making lower highs on a macro scale, right? Those are all lower compared to each other. And if price fails at this point of control of this downtrend, it will make that next lower high, and price should push down to see if we can make a new low. At least it should retest this major low volume node that was previously used as support. So that's pretty much the trades I made today. You could have taken this if you wanted to short. But I didn't do that. It was late in the day, and you can see once volume tries to break through there, that's where it kind of picks up support again. But again, that's super late in the day. I don't trade that late. The two trades I really wanted you guys to see were this first short trade when the market structure was changing from bullish to bearish with this lower high, supported by confluences of volume, supported by, taking this trade was supported by a fail of the point of control here, going under VWAP, breaking that market structure, and we could target that point of control or some of these low volume nodes if you want to sell earlier, that's fine. And then our next trade was that major low volume node bullish reversal brought on by the market structure, seeing that volume return, and also the fact that we had decreasing volume all the way down on this downtrend. And I do want to show you also one thing too. I do believe that if we just take this chunk of the downtrend, so okay, it comes up a little bit higher than that. That's fine, but you can see when it does show some resistance at the point of control here. But this point of control is pretty much should be about the same as the entire downtrend because we had most of our volume there. But you can extrude these points of control. They end up being great retest points when price leaves that price range of that volume zone. It should gravitate back. If there's not enough volume to support price going down further, and you can tell this with these different indicators and different zones, then it should gravitate back towards where there is more liquidity, which is often the point of control, considering that's the heaviest volume price range. So that's how we made some awesome money today in on S&P 500 on SPY using these volume methods. If you guys want, definitely go check out the lecture that I did in my previous video. I'd love to see you guys in our Discord. It's Grateful Futures Trade University. The link is in my bio. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think, and happy trading.